I'm Richard Wong. I'm a grad student at UT Austin working with Andrew Blumberg, and my research applies the computational methods of homotopy theory to answer questions about the modular representation theory of finite groups. Namely, as the title says, I use descent methods to compute the Picard groups of the stable modular category, in the special case for the quaternion group of order 8, and for generalized quaternion groups. These groups were originally computed by work of Carlson and Thévenaz using group cohomology and the theory of support varieties. However, work of Mathew and Mathew-Stojanoska introduced a new homotopical approach to this computation using descent methods and spectral sequences. In particular, I used their methods in the case of quaternion groups, and here are the results for the field F2 in particular. So I'll tell you about Picard groups, the stable module category, and then the computational tools that I use. At the end, I'll say a little bit about future directions for research. So if you have a symmetric modular category C, the Picard group is the set of isomorphism classes of invertible objects. These are studied in homotopy theory, especially in chromatic homotopy theory. Given a symmetric monoidal infinity category, you can do even better than the Picard group by looking at the infinity groupoid of invertible objects. This is a group-like E-infinity space, and so we equivalently obtain a connective Picard spectrum. This is especially well behaved because it commutes with limits and filtered colimits. And for example, the Picard spectrum of the category of modules over a commutative ring spectrum is understood quite well. And the work of Mathew and Mathew-Stojanoska give us a way to compute this Picard spectrum using faithful Galois descent and the homotopy fixed point spectral sequence. So I apply this to the stable module category because I study the modular representation theory of finite groups G over a field of characteristic P, where P divides the order of the group. One problem of interest is in computing the group of endo-trivial modules. This group turns out, by construction, to be isomorphic to the Picard group of the stable module category. This stable module category is the localization of the category of KG modules with respect to maps that factor through projective modules, and it is a symmetric monoidal infinity category. We'll restrict our attention to the case that G is a finite P group so that we can view it as the category of modules over the G Tate construction. This shows us how we can use Galois descent. A quick note on the Tate construction. If G acts on the Eilenberg-MacLane spectrum K, we can form the G homotopy fixed points as well as the G homotopy orbits. There is a norm map from the homotopy orbits to the homotopy fixed points, and the G Tate construction is the cofiber of this norm map. Most importantly, we can compute the homotopy groups of the Tate construction using the Tate spectral sequence. So now I'll talk about Galois descent. If Q is a quaternion group, if we had a faithful Galois extension from K to Q to some ring spectrum S, we can use the homotopy fixed point spectral sequence to compute its Picard group. So our goal is to find such a ring spectrum S. First, recall the following definition of a Galois extension of ring spectra, and also the definition of a faithful Galois extension. A result due to roundness says that the Galois extension is faithful if and only if the Tate construction is contractible. For Q, a quaternion group, it has center isomorphic to Z mod 2, and I show that we have faithful Galois extensions of ring spectra. And we prove this using the homotopy fixed point and the Tate spectral sequence. So here is the E2 page of the homotopy fixed point spectral sequence with D2 and D3 differentials. Resolving these differentials, we obtain the following E infinity page of the homotopy fixed point spectral sequence. We can use this to calculate the Tate spectral sequence. So we can import differentials from the homotopy fixed point spectral sequence, and we obtain the following E4 page. And so it remains to show that the D4 differential is non-trivial, which will then show that the Tate construction is contractible. And so we do have a faithful Galois extension. So with that, we can now compute the Picard group using the homotopy fixed point spectral sequence and descent methods. To say a little bit about the proof, we can use comparison results again to understand differentials in the descent spectral sequence for the Picard spectrum. The main difficulty is in understanding differentials out of the zero column. And so I use techniques from Mathew and Mathew-Stojanoska's paper to compute these differentials. In particular, we have a D2 in red and a D3 in blue. Resolving these differentials, we obtain the following E4 page, which tells us the homotopy groups of the Picard spectrum of KTQ. For Q, a generalized quaternion group. So this gives us a new homotopical calculation for the Picard groups of the stable modular category for the quaternion group of order 8 and for generalized quaternion groups. In future work, I propose to compute the Picard group of the stable modular category for the classes of extra special and almost extra special P groups. To do so, we will need to use some other type of descent, namely descent with respect to elementary abelian subgroups. This would be a major advancement in the homotopical approach to computing endo-trivial modules for general finite groups, because the proof of Carlson and Thévenaz reduces to these special classes of extra special and almost extra special P groups. Furthermore, I propose to use descent methods to compute the currently unknown Picard groups for variants of the stable module category coming from tensor triangulated geometry. So here are the references for the paper, and thanks for watching the video.